Hey fam, it's Gant,
And Jade.
and welcome to this week's episode of the Good Black Podcast.
Well, how are you?
I am good. Um, definitely just came off of the second busiest time of the year for housing professionals. It's closing. So I clocked, I think, 70 hours for 1 week yesterday. I'm exhausted. I am very tired.
You look tired.
Oh, you tried it. And I am tired. So that is okay. It's okay to look how you feel sometimes. But yeah, so super tired, but I do like my job. I cannot lie. Sometimes it is frustrating because jobs suck, and so does capitalism. And so does paying taxes. But I like my job. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to serve, and I think a lot of my work is in some ways, in my perspective, service based. So yeah, I like it. I don't hate my job at all, and I'm glad to be doing it.
That's
So
what's up. I
I'm good. How
mean,
are you? Oh,
I'm doing I'm I'm good.
yeah.
I am good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did think about it for a second. I am still in recovery mode from the births. And so after I attend a birth, eventually I have to do a postpartum visit, not have to, but I do postpartum visits. And so now I'm because I had 5 births, I'm doing 5 sets of like like postpartum visits.
Follow
So
up.
just having to juggle that and just checking in on all the new parents. But that's good.
Yeah.
This weekend, or yeah, I'm coming off of 16 hours of dance training.
Oof.
So I
In a
uh,
weekend?
in a weekend, yeah. So
Oof.
yeah, Friday and then yesterday, which was Saturday, I did what's called liquid motion heels certification. So it's 16 hours stretched between 2 days. And I was in 8-inch heels for about 14 of
Oh,
those hours. And just learning proper technique and like safety of the heel and just a lot of education. But I am just, my body hurts so much.
I bet
Um,
it does.
and so, just, I'm coming off of that. But outside of that, like I said, I'm still in recovery mode. And so that includes like apartment hunting from the from the comfort of my couch.
Mm,
I'm putting together my little list because I'll be moving out of my apartment later on this year. I need to leave. I hate my
yeah.
neighbors.
Oh.
Um, and so it's time that I should skedaddle. Um, and what else did I do? Oh, I also finished part 2 of the Selena series on Netflix because
Ah,
we love Selena's over here.
nice.
But yeah, I'm doing okay.
That's good.
Mhm.
Well, good luck on apartment hunting. I am considering that too later. I think I wrote it in, but yeah, just I'm also weighing some opportunities that would allow me to, in the next role, like move off campus.
Oh.
So that's something that requires lots of consideration because I've never
Mhm.
lived off campus before, so I do not have any furniture.
Mm,
I, and financially, that's gonna be a change. And then
it's
also, like, we have a
different.
dog now,
Yeah.
so that also changes like specifications of what we can have. Because I'm like, she needs a yard. I
Mm.
don't want to walk out of an apartment down to whatever little strip of grass is available. So, and my animal uses the bathroom outside. So,
Mhm.
and she has to use it outside. So I wouldn't mind if she had a litter box because that would just. Oof.
Well, my dog, I used to have a dog years and years ago,
You
and
did, didn't
yeah,
you?
Gigi, she used
Yeah.
to use a litter box.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she was small enough though. Plus,
Yeah.
a part of the time that I had her, we lived in Montana, and sometimes it would just get too cold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there would be some times where the whole family would be out. So she had her own little crate that my dad made, and he put a little litter box in there. Come to find out, that little heifer used to climb the gate to get out. I caught her on the side of it with her little
Like,
claws dug into it. And once again, this was a dog, not a cat. So yeah, she used to climb the little fence and get out of the little crate that my dad made her. Um, anyway, I miss
Yeah.
that dog.
Oh,
Mm.
I'm not ready
I
for
have
that.
I have another one day.
I'm not ready for that. Well, speaking of our animals, these are the only people that we parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's get into the scroll.
Yes, let's. So let's go ahead and get into the scroll. So by the time this drops, Mother's Day will have passed. We're actually recording on Mother's Day.
We
Uh,
are
what did you do for your mother today?
well. I called her and I sent her some money on Cash App.
Mhm, mhm.
And my sister and I did a gift, like a conjoined. That's not the word. A shared gift.
That's not the word. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, a shared gift to her. Um, so yeah, I hope she loves it. But I got to call and talk to her for a little bit. But as I've said earlier, I'm working, so I am stuck to campus. I can't even go, like, we can only be like within a 10-minute radius of campus or something like that. And my mother lives 4 hours away. So none of that.
It's definitely outside of that radius. Okay.
Absolutely. So what about you?
I sent my mom an orchid, a mini orchid, and I sent her some trekking poles, some walking sticks.
Mm.
Because my mama was out here, I'm not trying to put her business out here, but she was out here not using some walking poles. And I heard about it and I said, ma'am, I can't have you out here looking like that. So sent her some
For
walking
hiking,
sticks.
right?
Well, just so she goes on a walk every day.
Mhm.
And she had a hip replacement. When was this? Years ago. I was still in college when this happened, I believe. But sometimes it still gives her pain. And so having the extra support for her to walk is helpful. And so she's been using something like a walking stick to help her walk, but it
Mm.
wasn't a walking stick. And she was out here looking a little janky in my mind. And I can't have my girl out here looking like that. So I got her some walking sticks.
Of course.
And today so once a month we get on Zoom and we see each other. And so today is actually the day that it was already scheduled. So I'll be seeing her face at like 8. And hopefully my brother will be able to join us as well. So we can say Happy Mother's Day. And outside of that, I sent her a text because I'm going to see her later. So I was like, okay, Happy
Yeah,
Mother's
right.
Day.
There's no need to flood you
Mhm.
with my face.
Right. I'll see you later, girl.
Okay.
But of course, because today is Mother's Day, we're seeing a lot of posts across social media just celebrating mothers, mother figures, folks who identify as mother, but or folks who don't identify as mother, don't see themselves in that word, but have created life in some form. Mothers who aren't or, can't be with their children for whatever reason, mothers who've lost their children, children who are mothers themselves and have lost their mothers. And so they're holding a whole bunch of different feelings about this day. We see all of that and we see all of you. These relationships can be super complicated. But we're celebrating and uplifting each and every one of you. And I did want to shout out, so today is Mother's Day. Bereaved Mother's Day also passed, which was May 2nd. And so Bereaved Mother's Day, for anyone who is not aware of what that is, it's it's usually a week prior to Mother's Day. And it's a day to celebrate, commemorate, honor, uplift, mothers or maternal figures who have experienced the loss of a child or who have even had difficulty conceiving. And so with that, once again, we just celebrate and uplift you as well. You are seen, loved, and held here. And one thing I wanted to add to all of this, just as far as conversation goes, is you never know what someone's journey is. So tip from a doula, stay out of people's uteruses or uteri. Uteri seems like a good
You're
plural.
right.
Stay out of people's business. Stay out of people's uteruses. You never know what's going on. It takes nothing for you to be gentle or kind to someone else.
Yeah.
This world is complicated. There are lots of things that happen that no one else sees. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Absolutely. Mind your
Mhm.
business. Don't ask women when they're having kids.
I've only gotten that question a few times in my life. And then other people just kind of assume I'm a mother based on my shape, which that's been interesting. That's a whole topic we can get into about bodies. Yes.
Oh, that's certainly another week. Don't
Yep.
disrespect me. First of all, there's no need for you to even bring that up, regardless of my
No
body.
need. Yeah.
There's no reason. What unless I bring it up to you,
Right.
which I won't if I am not a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Uh,
understand. Okay.
but yeah.
That gave me a squint. Like, hmm.
Imagine what it gave me in the moment.
I
Imagine.
am empathizing
But
because you tried it.
mhm.
Okay, and yeah, so I we've had loss in our family over the last year. So um definitely a time for processing and reflection, I think, for me more than anything. And I one of our cousins, actually two of our cousins lost their mom um this past year. And just love to both of them. So yeah, just love to both of them on this on well, they may not hear it today, the actual Mother's Day, but love to both of them. I think I couldn't even imagine like having to do that, especially specifically for both of them still being relatively young, young women, losing a mom at a young age again. Like I just can't imagine. So much love to you all navigating this. One of you the first, one of the second, but it's still difficult no matter when you lose, when you lose your parent, any parent, but specifically your mother is something special and it's a different bond. So much love to both of them and to anybody who is listening and navigating that. Like, again, we already said it, but I don't think there's enough saying it. Like, much love and much encouragement to you in getting through another Mother's Day if you are missing your mother. And for those of you all who are not, please make sure that you go hug your mama, tell her you love her, call her, whatever the case might be. If you can, if it's necessary, mend any burned bridges around relationships with your parents, because you always feel like you have more time than you do. Um, so just do your best to, have loving relationships if possible. Put the if possible in there, because sometimes, people don't have great parent relationships either. So acknowledging all the things, just love to everybody on this day that can be joyful for some and difficult for others.
Mhm.
Yeah. I didn't see much in my scroll except for Mother's Day today.
Yeah, just lots of pictures of people and their babies, or my friends and their mothers. And I mean, there's not just the regular picture, you got to have the super duper throwback.
Absolutely.
What else am I seeing? The memes and everything. It's
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. The if you follow them on Instagram, a Black Lady Sketch Show shared like a slideshow of different mom and baby moments that they've had on the show, specifically Black mom and baby moments, and was hilarious. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I think that show is so dope and so funny. Robin Thede is a freaking genius and incredibly funny. Um, Dr. Hadassah Ali Young, something else, pre-PhD. That's the best character, best scripted character on TV right now. She's hilarious and her Teppy. So yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty much all that was in the scroll. So we gonna slide.
Yeah, slide right on out. Let's get into this family feud.
All right. So now we can get started with the family feud. Today we actually picked a couple of different things to begin the conversation around, specifically around like preparing for future children, because we do not have any children. We can't tell y'all what to do with your children.
Cannot tell you what to do with your children.
Absolutely not. But we can tell you what happened to us and what we hope to do
Exactly.
with our, next generation. So
Mhm.
just to start the conversation off, like, just talking about kind of what education our parents gave us. So what would you say like is probably the most valuable thing that your parents like taught you in your raising?
Stay vigilant, stay woke, keep your eyes open, keep your
Mm,
eyes on the prize. Um, I mean, definitely learned how to like good, bad, and different. Build some emotional walls, which got me through some pretty hard times.
mm,
But also, I think I learned a lot of resiliency from my parents. And the empathy that I have is definitely from them. My my eye towards service is something that I definitely get from them. Both of my parents were in the military at different points in time, so they served this country 40 years between them. Um,
mm,
and my drive to not only serve others or live a life of service and think of what I do as an act of service. But then also just my love for travel and wanting to be in different spaces, and really dig into different cultures. I think that's also something that I get from them. So those are some of my things. Yeah.
that's that's a lot.
Oh, and my fiery spirit.
Of
That is
course.
also something.
How could one forget that?
Cut somebody out in 2 minutes if I needed to. But I
Yeah.
digress.
I um I don't know. I feel like my parents taught me a lot. I think specifically my stepdad taught me the value of hard work. I think just through watching. But my mom specifically, I think a lot of what she has taught me has been through observation and, the ability to kind of like just view. She's taught me a lot about how to stay yourself regardless of like kind of what other things are going on, like how to be true to yourself, how to be honest with yourself, and how to love on yourself. I think I really wish that's something that my mom had done more of. I would say though. um I wish she had done a better job at kind of like protecting herself and kind of like just loving on herself um and just giving her own self the time. I think she definitely made up for it now, like in her older years. Like I think she's definitely kind of like come back around to the place of really doing things that are that serve her and doing things that help her kind of feel good and like and feel whole and being more of who she is instead of who the people around her needed her to be, which I appreciate that. I appreciate the, like the sacrifice. And I wish I would have loved to see her kind of be one of those, people that just like owned, like herself and what she needed in the moment and not, always kind of, bending to the will of what everyone else needed. Um, but she also taught me but in that she also taught me the ability to show love in action and not necessarily in just words and in fluff. She definitely was one of those, not was. No. She definitely
Oh,
is.
mm-hmm.
She definitely is one of the, like kind of like she's a wise woman, man. Like she's a, like she's like a, a walking proverb. Like she always got like a word in there. She's always got some kind of like piece of like encouraging thing. And to me, it wasn't always my favorite thing, but my mom is now and was growing up always kind of like she just take everybody in. It's
She
the
sure
it's the house
did.
of hope.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, like my mother's house, we call it the house of hope because like if you are an outsider, like if you come like an outsider to anything in any space, like she is going to be the person to like take you in. And I learned that. Like I think I think for me, that really taught me how to, again, just to show love and action to people. My mother, like, she loves on people. Like, it's not like, it's not Iyanla like grab you and lay in bosoms love, but it's like,
Yes.
it's the talking to you, the encouraging, the rebuilding. I think my mother has probably built so many people and she doesn't even realize it, like on that porch. Just encouraging and, like showing people, and showing people genuine love, regardless of what they were able to offer or what they were able to bring. So she has really shown me that. And that's something that to me is incredibly valuable, because I believe in people. Like, I don't like people all the time, but I believe in loving people all the time.
Hmm.
And and treating people well, regardless of their position, making sure that you show people honor and you show people respect. um you know I'm not quite at her level of love and respect, but but I definitely feel like that's something like incredibly valuable that my mother taught me, and that I would want my children to be able to do for people as well, if I were to ever have children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
often think about, and like, I know I already gave my answer, but I mean, there's so many other things that are still continuing to come to mind as far as like, what have my parents taught me? How have they raised me up? What types of things did they instill in me as I was coming up? But one of the things that, like, how old am I? I'm 33. That sounds right. I'm 33. And one of the conversations that or not conversations, but one of the things that I think about, like if I were to have children, or I guess I really don't have to wait and see, like if I decide to have children, this can happen with any young person in my life. And for some of this stuff, it actually has, because I was doing sex ed for all those years. And those students I think of as my kids. I was a part of the community that was helping to shape them and, help them to critically think and like interact with the world and things like that. But one of the things that's coming up is, what types of things do I want to ensure the children I have maybe one day or that are in my life, what do I want to incorporate into my parenting and like how I'm raising them or helping them to be raised? I know a big thing for me, because of one of the gaps that I identified in thinking about how I was parented and how I'm having to reparent myself, is this deal around emotional intelligence, and being quote unquote sensitive is not a bad thing.
Mm.
Um, and so how do I protect that and young people that are in my life, and encourage that and nurture that and give space for their feelings? And like I truly do feel and believe that there's a way that you can make space for other people's feelings, and you can help someone to, like, especially young people, learn how to be emotionally intelligent,
Yeah.
and you can still have set boundaries and rules, because they still need those things.
Yeah.
um but like, yeah, so I guess for you, start with you. What types of things do you want to ensure that children, like future children, or the young people that are in your life, what do you want to ensure that you incorporate into your parenting or raising or supporting when it comes to them? Does that make sense? I feel like I was
Yeah. No.
rambling.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah. That makes sense. Um. Hmm. I think something that I would really want to make sure that my children have a good hold on is me parenting the child that they are and not the one that I want them to be.
Say that again, please. Say that again, please.
Parenting the child that they are and not the one that I want them to be. Um,
Hmm.
because what I perceive is that, excuse me, um, for me, and I have talked about this to my mom, like she she told me that I was mean a lot. And I wasn't mean, because to me, mean implies malice. That means that you are intentionally being rude to people with the hope of causing harm, right? So that's my perspective on what it is to be mean. But I was just a no nonsense kid, right? Like, I wanted to read, I wanted to watch whatever I was going to watch on TV. Otherwise, leave me alone. Like, I don't want to have conversation that doesn't mean anything. I don't want to, like, you know, or if you say something stupid and I know better, I want the ability to be able to say that. Now, and I don't feel like my mother was wrong for correcting, you know, for helping me to see other ways of communicating with people. But what I do feel like is something that I picked up that did not serve me later in life, was an attitude of, you know, like kind of, you know, in a way protecting myself, but also in a way kind of like this people pleasing, right? And that just did not serve me. And I wish that at that time, I wish that I had been able to just be instructed as who I was, which is, okay, let me hear what you're trying to say, because I feel like what you're saying just needs a touch of tact. And because it's not that you are wrong, but it is that you do also want to be considerate of other people's feelings in your expression of self.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say like parenting the child that they are and not the one that you want them to be, I mean like actually looking at what your child exhibits, looking at what your child puts out, and making sure that you parent that, and not like making them conform to a certain thing. Because at the end of the day, every child that's born, you know, God willing, they, you know, progress to adult age, they're going to be their own person. So it is better for you to allow them to be who they are with guidance, rather than to try to, you know, to try to put them in the cookie cutter. And then at 18, like you have a cake out of that cookie cutter mold, which means it's out of control. It does not have anything in it. Then you have to do the work that we do of reparenting ourselves later on, which they'll still have to do
They'll
some
still have to do that,
version of that.
right. But
Right.
I think to what extent can be the defining thing.
Right.
And like that, thinking along this cake analogy, I'm also thinking of folks who, once again, acknowledging that people are doing the best they can with what they have, and
Right.
sometimes it's still not enough, or sometimes you forget things, and that's to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about how at 18 people are released out into this world, and we're just expected, not that we're expected to know everything. I feel like some people do think that they're supposed to know everything, and that they still can't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, it's just this weird thing of where you turn 18, and I'm still having to check in with folks because I'm like, nobody really taught me how to manage money in the way that I should, in a way that is truly responsible. Like, I knew money was a thing. I knew it didn't grow on trees. And what else is happening in between that it doesn't just grow on trees.
Right.
Like, I know how to write a check. I kind of know how to balance a checkbook. Those things aren't really of use to me anymore. Like the checkbook balancing thing, technically, who writes checks these days? Not too many people. But you get what I'm saying. But like, oh, but
I know.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to throw you
out. Keeping this in. Oh, but you know, for me, one of the things that I feel like I want to make sure that I'm talking to my children about is specifically money management. What does it mean to do your taxes? What does it mean to make sure you're always paying yourself? Like, don't just tell me that you should always pay yourself first. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And how feasible is that when you're always living hand to mouth?
Yeah.
If I only have $5 and everything, and I'm talking about base level, everything is like $4.50.
Yeah.
Like, how, come on. So those are that's a lesson that I want to carry forward, just based on my own experience and, you know, the mistakes that I've made, and how I think about, like, I didn't actually get a real conversation about what it means to manage your money. I got these like cute proverbs, I got these cute sayings, but it wasn't until much later, and I'm having to do my credit recovery and all this other stuff. And like, now I'm in a great place, but it would have been so much easier if I didn't have to struggle and make certain mistakes.
Yeah.
And in struggling and making those certain mistakes, another thing that I want to ensure that I'm instilling like that I'm incorporating into how I'm interacting with young people, how I'm raising potential future children is like, I know parents say like, you can always come to me, but I want my people, my young people to truly know and get that feeling and get that sense. And I want to embody that for them. So there's no question. So they're not afraid to ask. One of the biggest things about my memories, like coming into adulthood and like going through childhood, is just I guess scared is an easy word to use.
Mm.
And it's not like my parents were terrifying or anything, but they just, I don't know, it just, I didn't always feel like I could go to them. I didn't always feel like, each question was quote unquote not a stupid question. Some of how they reacted to me, I felt like, well, that's a dumb question. Don't ask that.
Yeah.
And so like eventually you build up these walls, or not we. I built up walls. Let me speak in I sentences. And I made sure not to do certain things, or at least not to do certain things in front of them, just because I was afraid of what they had to say. I was afraid of like their reaction. I was afraid that they would look at me a certain way or even think I was stupid if I didn't understand, just because of other reactions I had seen from them in the past when it came to certain things that I did.
Okay.
And so wanting future kids, future young people in my life to know that when I say you can come to me, that is truly what I mean. And in that means cultivating a space and a relationship that really feels safe. It really
Yeah.
feels safe for mistakes. It really feels safe for questions. It really feels safe for vulnerability and transparency and tears. You can be
Mm.
sensitive around me and I won't think that something's wrong.
Mm. Yeah. That's a really those are words. Um that's really significant. I think we have a difficult time, I think, establishing that, like, and let me speak for myself. I think that I would have a difficult time establishing that, because I think the way to get that is to also have a level of self-mastery that I think most people just do not have, because
Very true.
children,
Myself included.
yeah,
Yep.
myself included, I'm really dealing with this. Honestly, seriously, I've been thinking this to myself like for a couple of days now, because of I have a dog, as we've talked about. So I think so much about like my reactions to her, because like sometimes she does things that they just upset me. And I'm like, yo, like you have to learn a level um of self-control in the way that you discipline, in the way that you have, like, in the way that you react to things, because children are different than dogs. They don't just look at what you say when you're speaking to them. They look at your reactions when you are speaking to anyone, because like speaking to people, when you're having a conversation, when you're having a disagreement, when you are experiencing frustration in a moment, because and I got this from a TikTok as well, but but your children just, they look at you, like it's the whole, like, going back on the whole adage of like, do as I say and not as I do. But it's like also like, I see what you are doing.
Right, I see what you're doing.
Yes, and that is what I model. That's what I work out of. So that being the case, I need you to show me something different. I need you to show me that when the guy at the McDonald's gets your order wrong, like you don't just snap off. You exercise some emotional restraint, or some, like some kind of control when you are dealing with something that is inconvenient to you. Thus, when I have something that I feel like is going to be inconvenient to you, I can actually feel comfortable coming to you and having a conversation, because I've seen you at the very least exercise the ability to be calm and even keel and offer me good advice.
Right.
Yeah. So it's important, but it requires self-work, and it requires something that you have to do all the
All
time.
the
Like, you have to
time.
constantly be practicing this thing, because if not, like, it won't become second nature to you. Like, it's not gonna just jump on you all of a sudden one day. And it's important to have that for your children, to feel that level of safety with you. It can't just be like, you're like, oh baby, okay, what's going on, and then you turn around and cuss the person till you're left out. Like, it has to be, it has to be both things, because I feel like that probably provides confusion for the person who is watching you. So that, like, that's deep that you said that, like that, that emotional, like that emotional safety and ability to kind of come to you with like failures and mistakes, because we all want, everybody wants their children to be able to talk to them and come to them. But what kind of environment, and what kind of environment are you creating for that, one? And two, what kind of behavior are you exhibiting that is hindering you from having that perception?
Right.
That you're saying.
I think the other thing that comes with that, as far as like you mentioned, the environment, and they're also watching you and how you interact with other people in the world. I'm going to speak once again in I terms, because I can only speak for myself and my experience. When I see my parents interact, or when I hear them talk about other people, it might not be them talking directly about me, but if I have identified something in myself with someone else that they might be talking about, or another group that they might be referencing, and I'm not saying that this, my parents are bigots or anything else like that, but if I have identified pieces of myself in another group, in another person, and then I hear my family talk about that other person or that other group, even if it even skews negatively, even if it, like, it might not be negative, but if the connotation of the words that they are using are anything less than positive, I'm like, oh, so if I were to show up here and be something like these people,
Yeah.
does that mean I'm no longer accepted? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? And I do remember having some fears of that when I was a kid too. And like I said, I don't think my parents are out here, they're not bigoted individuals or anything like that.
Right.
But people have their own views and opinions based on how they were raised, based on what they've seen in their life, based on where they come from and everything else. Um, and based on the fact that some terms were acceptable back in the
Mm.
day, now they are not so much.
Yep.
And so it's just like this whole swirl of, they had their own lived experiences and lives before I came into being. And
Yeah.
some of that stuff is still with it. Like, does that make sense? I
Oh,
really hope I'm
absolutely.
not out here painting my parents like they were some horrible people. They absolutely were not.
Yeah.
And there were certain things where I felt like I'm this sensitive little brown child, and I don't know. Are you happy with this? I don't know. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I get the sense that, like, sensitive people in your minds are possibly weak, or they annoy you, or I don't know.
Mhm.
And so those feelings for these other people who you've identified as that thing, like, does that transfer onto me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I totally get that. I think that I was just in a, am I muted? Oh, just
Yeah.
making sure. Yeah, I think that I definitely had those, like, some conversations. I feel like by the time I started approaching like eighth grade, middle school somewhere, I definitely got a lot more outspoken in my house, because I was just like, you sound ignorant. Now what if I show up on, like, on, this
Mhm.
side of the spectrum, or like, I think specifically I remember like having a conversation like around interracial dating,
Mhm.
and that just not being a thing that like my family was like, oh, down with. And I'm like, I was like, listen, whoever I bring up in here, y'all better put your face on, put the smile on, whatever the case might be. Whoever I show up in here with, you better be nice, and or fake it for the hour and a half that we here, because I'm not gonna have y'all disrespecting nobody that I care about. So you don't care enough about me to keep your mouth shut for an hour.
Mhm.
Pull it together. Like, I remember having a conversation like that with I think it was my mom. I'm pretty certain it was my mom specifically, but I talked to my sister about it too.
Mhm.
And being like, at that time, like, get it together, pull yourself together and act right. You can do better than this. And have had some conversations since, some of them recent, about, some language that, yeah, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
That's probably not what you mean to say.
Yeah.
Or even if it's what you mean to say, you don't feel that way. Let's fix it. That's not right. So yeah, definitely some reworking going on, some changing of the guards going on, because I definitely feel like, as a child, I internalized a lot of things that I would hear, my parents specifically, but just family in general, like, say, but always deep down feeling like, that that's not the look
Yeah.
um that we want anyway. So yeah, that's definitely something that for myself, like, I want to do a better job at, with my children, not allowing them to also see me exhibit behavior that I would not want to see them duplicate. So be important for me to check myself. Like, it's important for you to kind of like lose your ego when it comes to your kids. Like, let me dial that back. I don't want to perform parenthood out of ego, for my children, just because, like, sometimes, like, your kids might check you, you know
They will.
yeah, like, you got the right kids, they're going to check you. Like, you're going to find yourself in a position where, like, your children are saying something to you that you are like, excuse me, because Georgia Power ain't come ask nobody for the bill but me. But that's irrelevant, especially like if your goal, like, if you're the type of person, like, where growth is your goal, like development is your goal, like you truly want to be a better person in any facet of life. It's important that you lose that ego, because your children are going to tell you stuff. They're going to show you things that you did not even imagine. And I'm great. That's one thing that I'm very grateful for in my relationship with my mom, is that now we can have conversations back and forth and have dialogue, where she may not change her mind and I may not change mine, but we can have a conversation about it, and it doesn't have to, and it's not disrespectful, or she doesn't perceive it as disrespectful, because she believes in conversation and she believes in learning new things. So, like, I'm really grateful that I have a parent with, now as an adult child, like, I can have have conversations with, and she can glean from me as well as I glean from her. Because another thing that's important to, like, be considerate of is that your children feel like they can have that space with you. My children, it's important for me to feel like my children can have that space with me, and occupy that space in a way that, where nobody's losing ground. We're both sharpening one another. We're growing in one way or the other. And I still respect that my mother lived 25 years before I was born, and continued to live as an adult in a space where she was growing and having experiences that, I haven't even scratched the surface on yet. So I still understand that my mother's my mother, and, like, and there's a certain wisdom that has come along with those years for my situation, and a certain amount of, like, respect that she's earned. Um, so yeah, all that. And just to close, like,
Actually, wait, one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry. Another thing, my final thing, and just thinking about this, and thinking about my own experience, and once again, thinking about the plethora of mistakes I have made in my dating life. Another thing that I would want to ensure that I'm incorporating into my parenting and in my modeling for other young people, or for young people that are in my life, or future children. And I say it like that because I truly do not know what's about to happen. It will be a surprise for everybody. Um, it does center around relationships, and romantic relationships especially. Like, I feel like I got a great handle on, what it looks like to have long-term friendships. My parents did a great job of modeling that. And where I wish I had a little more, and I didn't get the information until after I was going through some of my own experiences, but I think some of this information on the front end would have been helpful. And just like, what does it look like to navigate relationships, and not just oh, well, don't do that because they gonna think you fast. Like, could we please leave that where it needs to sit, which is next to the garbage, if not in it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just navigating relationships, and what that looks like and how hard that can be sometimes when you're trying to bring together two completely different people
Yeah.
and make something work, and what communication looks like in a partnership. um and I also recognize that, once again, you can't necessarily model or embody that for other people if you yourself have not experienced that.
Yeah.
And so, because I've had different experiences that skewed towards the negative, and I'm now in a positive situation and have this I have at least had healthy experiences under my belt. That is one of the things that I definitely want to make sure that I'm incorporating into my parenting. Like, this is what it looks like. This is what goes into it. It's not just
Yeah.
what you're seeing on a day to, like, if two people are smiling, like, what led to these smiles? Let's
Yeah.
talk about all the stuff that you don't see. Once again, let's talk about all the stuff that we don't see. And so that's what I would want to incorporate into my parenting as well. And so now we can transition. Go ahead.
Well, I was just transitioning to our last kind of topic.
Yes.
So yes, what kind of things do you talk about with your partner about future children and co-parenting?
Oh, so many things. I so many things. I know with my partner, we've had, what am I trying to say? We have seen things on TV and like had conversations about what we're seeing and how we might approach things. Like,
Mhm.
we were watching some chess movie. Finding Bobby Fischer, Searching for Bobby Fischer, one of them movies. I don't know. I hadn't seen that movie since I was a kid. It was about this little boy in the Northeast United States, and he plays chess. That part doesn't matter. But there were certain situations that you're seeing with his parents, and they're not having to, but they're talking about, basically, it sounded like their values, as far as like, we have this 6 or 7 year old child in front of us. He's still a child, but he's also turning out to be a chess prodigy. And like, what does that look like when your two values as parents, now we're having to sit down and talk about them. And so we talked about like what that would look like for us. So yeah, we talk about stuff that we see on TV or in media. We have even had conversations about like hypothetical situations. Um, you know, it's really about parsing out, or for us, it was about parsing out what each of us is bringing to the table as far as our values, as far as what we want to instill in our children. And in some
Mm.
instances, finding that it seemed like there's a nice balance here of like emotional intelligence and like very, very, very rational thought. And you need both of those things to
Yeah.
operate in this world. And
Yep.
so, just, but yeah, we talk about what it looks like to um as- we definitely talk about the different things that we think we bring to the table as far as what we want to instill in our children. um like I said, we've done hypothetical situations, TV, other media, and what we're seeing. um yeah, and just how we would handle situations, like if a kid were to get into a fight, what would that look like? Who could potentially take the reins based on what we're seeing, like even down to as minute a detail as that. We've talked about those things. What we haven't talked about, I don't think, is like where we would live, if we would want to stay in this area, or like
Mm.
the role of grandparents, things
Oh,
like that. Um, I know I've thought about like what holidays would look like, because just family is everywhere. But I don't think we've necessarily talked about that together.
yeah.
Trying to think of anything else. What about you?
Um, I think the first thing we probably have talked about the most is just kind of like religious practice. So we are both essentially Christian, but there's some difference in practice.
Mhm.
Um, in my partner's practice, she's a little her family's like a little just a little bit more strict on on the Bible, and like not like doing like pagan holidays and
Mhm.
all of that stuff. And so it's kind of like, well, girl, it ain't got to be Santa. it's Christmas over here. Like, so yeah, so we talked a lot about that, but honestly, to me personally, I don't have that big of a tie to any of those, like those, like the iconography of, like, major holidays. Like, if we don't have a tree, that's fine. Can we have gifts? We can have gifts. Okay, have gifts. That's fine. I can decorate the house. I can still put lights up. Okay, good, cool. So so yeah, so we talked a lot about that initially, and I think for me, like I said, because I don't have like a huge tie, like, or a need to tell my children about Santa, like it's fine. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that probably was the first thing that we spoke the most about. And we kind of came to a consensus on, like, how we would do that should we ever have children. But I do think right now what we talk the most about is, where are we raising these children? Because we know that we are both Black, and I mean, again, anti-Blackness is global, but I definitely struggle a lot with the idea of bringing children into this country, specifically Black children into this country. I just have a hard time justifying it.
I just would be so
Because
stressed out.
yeah, like
so stressed.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, unless you intend to basically have your children at home with you every moment of every day. And I mean, we've seen time and time again that even that's not safe, So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest conversation we have now, is kind of like, where are we going to be raising these children? Because like you, we've spoken about, like, what are the roles of in-laws? Like, my partner is like, I definitely want my mom to, like, come and be with us, maybe for the first, 6 weeks or however long, with having, that's another thing. With having kids, and I'm like, I want to honor that. And I don't know if I want to look at your mom in my house for 6 weeks. Or my mama in our house for 6 weeks.
And to that, I would say, like, be strategic and plot things out. So maybe it's not the entire 6 weeks, but we trading off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like y'all could come on the weekend, give me hours or something like that. Yeah, or like just an enormous house where there are like in-laws, like
go to your separate wing, please.
Go to your wing, and there needs to be a kitchen in your wing and in your area, and a bathroom and everything you need, and a private exit. So we've talked we have talked about it, but also, like, I think in the most recent years, like, we've also kind of like come to the realization that, like, we don't have to have children. And I think that was a realization for both of us. Like, my partner is an L&D nurse, so she also sees a lot of women, giving birth, and and how much that process is on the mother, the woman giving birth, and just kind of being like, yeah, I think I'm okay on that. And so it's both kind of having a realization that we don't that's not something that we have to do, right? Like, we could live and just
be
have
us.
our lives, and just us, like, that's totally like a possibility. And I think that was, I don't want to say profound, but I think it was a big deal the moment that I think we both kind of came to that realization that, like, if we did not want to have children, it would absolutely be okay. Because even though people make you feel like it is a thing, that it's something that you do,
right, and you're missing out, or you're lacking, or less than, if you don't.
Right. It's like, it simply doesn't have to be something that you do. And my partner says now, she's like, having children is a purely selfish thing, because you cannot truly assess, like, the kind of life that you are going to give that child. You can't assess what's going to happen to them once they get out here. You can only do your best to take care of them, and that doesn't take into account what is going to happen to them in the course of this thing called life that they did not ask to be a part of. So it's important, but I also feel like it, if and when we have children, it would be an absolute accident. And we probably will, but it will definitely be like, all right, well, hey, here we are.
Like I said, my current partner and I are both separately on the fence about things. I know I've had my moments where I'm like, well, it would be nice to have a kid with him specifically, not just any other person out here.
Right.
But yeah, both of us are on the fence as like individuals, and coming into our relationship, we were on the fence.
Yeah.
Another thing that we've like loosely talked about is just different routes to parenthood. So maybe it's a situation where infertility is a thing, or just, you know, not people, but me putting my body on the line is not an option that we want to exercise. And so like, how okay is everyone in this relationship about things like adoption or surrogacy? We've had like very light touch conversations about that, and that's actually been pretty recent. But yeah, that's another thing that we've talked about. So not just having children in general, but sometimes the route to becoming a parent is also a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
And contrary to popular belief, Black people do adopt. Black people do engage in surrogacy. Because once again, you don't know what someone's story is.
Right.
You don't know what someone's story is.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we've done the same. Like we've had kind of light touch, very quick conversations on that, because my partner's she's not a fan of adopting, but as like growing up, I don't remember specifically what memory gave me this feeling, but I always felt like, you know what? I definitely want to adopt a kid. Like I would love to have children of my own, and this is growing up. I would love to have children of my own, but I also want to adopt because, for many, children across the world, specifically in like the foster care system, they just don't have they don't have that stability. They don't have that family for some of them. I just feel like that's such a dope thing to give somebody, like caring parents.
Yeah.
And it's I just feel like it's an invaluable gift. So my partner's she's not on board for that. But hopefully, they're like you said, the road to becoming parents, I think is an important thing to kind of like important conversation to broach when it comes to decision to be a parent, because it can look many different ways, and if it doesn't show up in that way for you, and you're someone like who strongly desires to be a parent, like take heart. There's lots of other things that you can do. There's lots of other ways to be a parent and to be a good adult figure to someone that doesn't involve you birthing children of your own.
Right.
And so many people, like young people, really need good guidance, really good influence, like people to just to kind of show love in a way that's not always like parenting per se.
Right.
So there's a lot that we can do as a community to kind of like provide support and love for kids who don't otherwise have it from parent figures. And we should all be a little bit more open about looking into that and seeing what that is, and doing the best we can to love on the children that that are near up by us, and show them love in our actions, and not just in our words. And
Yeah. The final thing I'll say about like the types of conversations that my partner and I talk about is, and we kind of got into this on this podcast, thinking about or talking about how we were raised and what we noticed, what we didn't notice, like gaps we identified, like amazing moments we had, and specific lessons learned. And we talk about all those things in connection to, I want to pass some of these things down.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things for me, and I think I've said this to almost every person I've dated, like I grew up where my mom was the one who went to work full time and my dad stayed at home. So for any man to come my way and talk to me about the fact that I'm going to be the one staying at home, and he is basically helping me to raise the kids that we created, nah, son, that doesn't fly over here, because I know it can be a different way. What was modeled for me is very different from what some of these other people out here are talking about. Yeah. And so talking to my partner about that, and just kind of sitting back and listening, and, not saying it in those words specifically, but sitting back and listening to some of the things that he's had to say about like how he would want to show up as a parent and be the one at all the practices and all the recitals. And I'm
Hmm.
like, it's music to my ears, because that is
Yeah.
exactly, those are the types of things that both of my parents did, but especially my dad. Like, he was the one who was at home sewing my costumes for plays, and then turning around and teaching moms, the other moms in the class, how to sew their kids' costumes. Like, he was churning stuff out. He
Yeah.
that was my guy. That was my guy when it came to stuff like that. He stayed at home with me. He was a stay-at-home dad. And so, it's always been in the back of my mind, like, well, maybe that'll be how I want my setup to be as well. Maybe not a complete stay-at-home dad situation, but definitely someone who sees the value in being super present in a child's life in that way. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying my partner is about to be out here sewing costumes. I'm not even sure if he can sew. That's not the point of this. The point is, that desire from my partner to, like, if he were to have a child, even if it's not with me, granted, if it's not with me, that means we're not together, but even if it's not with me, him wanting to be super present in his child's life. And that's the bottom line for me. And so though, that's another thing that we talk about, like, the level of attention and care and integration into your child's life. What does that look like for you?
Yeah.
um what does the work life balance look like? Those are some of the other things that we talk about, because I think those things are so important. And final thing that I'll say that kind of ties into all of this is, women are often told either you can or you can't have it all. I don't know
Mm.
where I sit on the fence with that. Lean in culture was a big thing, a few years ago. That's all fine and dandy. But one of the things that I've heard more recently is that all your priorities and obligations and certain things, like, think of them like balls, and some of them are glass and some of them are rubber. And so,
Mm.
you're gonna drop balls. That's to be expected. You can't always do all the things. And some of the balls will, like, take a look at the obligations, priorities, responsibilities that you have in front of you. What are the things that, if you maybe didn't show up in the way that you wanted to, but you were able to show up a little bit, um like, what would that do to the relationship? Things like that. So I just think the bottom line for that is, because I'm not saying this correctly at all, but whatever, like, being intentional or really taking stock of what you have in front of you. And especially if you have a community, tap into that community. If you have a co-parent and the relationship is steady and positive, like, try and go back and forth around who's going to be there for what in the moments that we can't both be there. And that's something that's really bubbling up to the surface for me. But I feel like, once again, I feel like I'm rambling again, so I'm gonna stop here.
No, you're not. You're definitely not. Like, this is. I think this is actually an amazing conversation, because I think I feel like we're in the kind of myself. I can see myself being in a similar situation as you, like having a partner who's like working, and then I'm kind of like at home, because I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a homemaker or domestic per se, because I can be messy, but like the ability to kind of like be home and take care of the house, like, it's something that, like, like I definitely have, and I feel like I can see myself being like, being like I can see myself being like a, maybe not a stay-at-home dad, because I don't think I would ever completely stop working,
Mhm.
but because I like to work.
Yeah, but you
But
might prioritize home a little bit more
right, I
and
can
find
see, yeah.
something that could allow you to do that.
Absolutely. I could definitely see myself like being in that space, potentially working from home, or whatever the case might be, and being the person running around on the Zoom call because my toddler just walked in. I
Yes.
can see I can see that being my life. And but I don't know if my partner would allow me to do that. So she definitely grew up like, where her mom prioritized the home. So she was at home a lot. Not that she didn't ever work, but she
Mhm.
was at home a lot, and she kind of like took care of them, as much as she could, by prioritizing that. And I've always told her, I'm like, listen, I ain't never wanted no stay-at-home wife now. I don't desire that.
But I think that this is such an important conversation to have, because people
Yeah.
be out here like, oh, we gonna get married and then I'm gonna just stop working. And I see people like, what you talking about, sis? Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah. Right. First of all, thank you to Candy and Portia and the crew, because that is an important contribution to Black culture. Because it's always appropriate.
Always appropriate.
Yeah, and I mean, like for me, I'm like, I didn't grow up seeing women who was at home. The women I grew up around worked. They were getting up and going and looking at you crazy if you weren't.
Yep.
Yes, worked hard and definitely and have
sorry, not to say that stay-at-home parents don't work hard, not to say that at all. But our folks were like leaving the home to work very hard to provide for us in that way. That's what we're trying to say.
Absolutely. And I don't mean to also diminish the work of staying at home either, because I say that for myself because I can see that I have the capability to kind of keep the home up and take care of things. In the last year, my partner was in nursing school, so she was at school a lot and she was like managing all of those things, and we had basically a newborn puppy. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, like it's me walking her every 2 hours. It's me like doing this. It's me making organizing a place for her to sleep in the house when we are just now figuring all these things out, as well as doing, again, busiest time of the year for me, working in housing, and all of the things were happening, but I was still, able to manage those things without completely losing my mind. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just like, okay, I can definitely see myself doing that and not hating it either. But yes, so anyway, I forgot what I was saying when we corrected that. Mm-hmm. But I can see myself doing the staying at home thing. But again, we didn't grow. So I was saying, I told my partner at the outset of our relationship, I'm like, listen, I have never desired to have a stay-at-home wife. I would like for you to work. I want you to have your own stuff. I want you to develop and grow and chase and do and be all you can be. I would like to be there to support you and to help you do those things. And I don't know if my career is going to allow me to make the kind of money for you to stay at home. So let us all keep realistic expectations of what's going on here.
Yeah. That's important.
So yeah, I was always super clear about that. But yeah, no, I think that you bring up an incredibly important point, and I think a lot of times we don't have those conversations because of our expectations and desires around gender roles and what we saw growing up and what we didn't see, growing up too. And I think we would do a great job to kind of have those conversations, and it would make you an amazing parent to have conversations with your partner that allow you both to be on the same page and providing stability and expectations for your children of what to expect out of their parents.
Yeah.
So all that said, that was a conversation.
Conversation.
We typically do. Mm-hmm. So we're going to wrap up the Family Feud for this week. If you have any contributions or any thoughts on what we shared, you can always shoot us an email at goodblackpodcast@gmail.com. I may have that wrong. I believe it is just goodblackpodcast@gmail.com. If not, just listen to the outro at the end of the show. That one's going to be right. And we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
I'll go first. So my love letter this week is to each person that thinks of themselves as in community with someone who is recently postpartum. And by recently postpartum, I mean has had a baby within the last year. I'm just actually going to turn this into tips from a doula. So these are free tips that I'm giving out, y'all. I've got 5 tips. And this is how, folks can support their loved ones or community members who, like I said, have had a baby within the last year. So tip number 1, don't ever go to someone's house unannounced, period.
Why would you?
Tip number 2, if you're going to someone's house, you should also be bringing something. I tell my clients, if someone's coming over, they better not come over empty-handed. And that could mean you're bringing some food, you're offering to watch the baby so the parent or the parents can get a nap or take a shower, or even just eat, with both of their hands. It might be some hands to help with laundry, a listening ear. You might be bringing over affirmations, just something. Like, new parents need support, even if they're not verbalizing it, and you're a part of their community. So if you're calling yourself a part of their community, that means you are also signing up to take care of them during times of transition. And having a child is a big transition. So always come over with something in hand or in mind for the new parent or parents. Tip number 3, stop shoulding all over new parents. And that's when you're like, you should, you should, you should, you should. Stop shoulding all over people, okay? New parents have a lot of information coming their way. They're having to make a lot of decisions. Be gentle with them because they're trying to figure out their parenting style and what works best for them. And also remind them to be gentle with themselves. Like everybody's just out here trying to do their best and figure it out with what they've got. So yeah, stop shitting all over people. Tip number 4, be the person to pool the community resources to support this new person in their new journey. And so pooling resources, community resources can look like pooling money or time. And so you can get things for the recently postpartum parent. You can start a meal train. You can pool money together to hire a postpartum doula, which is someone who comes over, within the first year of someone having a baby, and they're able to help out with tasks and help people like figure out their parenting style and boost their confidence and just really help people in the start of this journey. Pooling resources can also mean like pooling money for counseling support. Parenting is hard. That transition hits people in certain ways that they didn't expect. And some people do need a little bit of support, and that's fine. And then also pooling resources can look like either physically making postpartum recovery kits or buying postpartum recovery kits. I know people like go wild over baby showers and then want to get all the cute knits and booties and hats and everything else like that. But don't forget the parents. Postpartum recovery kits are really important. Bathroom baskets are a thing that I tell all of my clients about. And so they have things like witch hazel pads, postpartum ice packs, the postpartum undies, perineum bottles so that they can like squeeze warm water instead of wiping, especially if regardless, but like, as far as bathroom care and support, like those are the types of things that you want to lean towards when we're talking postpartum recovery kits. So yeah, pool community resources to get something along those lines. And then tip number 5 is affirm. Postpartum, regardless of how many children someone has, comes with a lot. And people get messages all the time from strangers on the internet or other people in their family or even the media that tell them that they suck at parenting. All right. Mm-hmm. So support new parents by affirming them. Everyone parents differently. And just because it isn't what you would necessarily do doesn't mean it's inherently wrong. It just means it's different. There can be multiple ways to get to the same outcome. Right. And as long as no one is directly in harm, and it doesn't look like it's going to have a bad outcome, like affirm their choices, affirm what they're doing, sit back and listen. And the postpartum period in general is a chance for like the community to come together to help boost new parent confidence, model things for the new parents if they need it, and then support them in making the choices that they feel are best for them and their child. One of the most powerful things I heard this week is that and it's so simple, but it's so powerful. No one cares more for a child than its mother. Keep that in mind. Instead of treating people like they are inherently dangerous to themselves or to their baby. Support them so that they can be the parents that they have always hoped that they could be. And the support might look a little different for everyone, but those are my 5 tips as a part of the love letter to folks who are in community with other folks or parents who are recently postpartum. So I'll stop there.
Nice. And thank you for sharing that. I'm like learning stuff. I'm like, okay, that's something I should be prepared for. I do have a question though.
What's up?
As a follow-up, for people who are a parent and not necessarily like new parents, if you're like, let's say like first 5 years of the child's life or something like that, what is a tip that you would give to people who are in community with parents in general?
For people who are in community with parents in general.
Yeah, young kids, maybe, let's say.
I think it would still hover like the thing I will lift up as far as what I just said is stop shooting all over new parents. Toddlers have big emotions and big feelings, and people are going to take in all the different information that's coming their way, and they will be overwhelmed, and they will not know what to do sometimes, or they will be slowly trying to figure it out. And so instead of like putting all of your hopes and dreams for this one person, like, and their parenting style on them, just have an open ear and open arms. Like, sometimes parents just need to decompress. So yeah, stop, for parents in general, stop shooting all over parents in general. And then the other thing is, like, leave space for people to just have the range of emotions that they're feeling. Once again, parenting is complicated, it is messy, it is beautiful, and it is hard. And all of those things can be true at the same time. So just offering to be there, if you feel comfortable, if they feel comfortable, offering to like watch the kid for a couple hours, like for free. That can be really helpful to people, just so people can take a break, so that they're not being pushed to their limit or past their limit, because we know that when people get to that point, that's when they start to get impatient, and that's when they aren't able to be as intentional as they would like to be in their parenting. So I think those are some of the things that I would say about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Pretty self-explanatory. All right. So hopefully that was helpful to everybody listening. So the follow-up that I have for that in my love letter to our listeners is protect Black women. That's it. That's the tweet. No, but yeah, like, you know, and incorporate the protection of Black women into your daily way of being. It's relatively simple to do, but it does require you to do the action work of love and not just the vague emotional component, right? So you have to kind of step outside of yourself and hear what Black women are saying to you. You have to get rid of your fears of being found guilty of not successfully expressing or, you know, perpetuating care for Black women, and, you know, learn to do the work of love. People talk about love and it's like, oh, I love this group, or I love this person, or I love, you know, this, you know, this entity, so to speak. But love is an action word. And it has to be continued with action in the way that you support and that you know, cover Black women in the world. So it's not always easy, but it's definitely always going to be worth it. Find an Instagram page dedicated to the promotion, elevation, and service of Black women, to find things that maybe you don't know that you lack, or, you know, that, or if treat it as a skill that you desire to build. You know, check yourself first before you find fault. Like, all of these things can absolutely be done. It's not lost on me that largely our demographic of listeners are women, but I also think that, you know, just within our own community, we can do a better job. Like, and I don't want to speak to women about women, but, you know, if you're hearing this message and you yourself are a woman, I think it's also valuable to see the ways in which you can, you know, you can take care of and protect, you know, protect Black women, even if you yourself are already Black. I think some of the ways that, you know, that we can do that is, like, if you have a disagreement with an online influencer about something that they say or do, sometimes the protection can be, as long as what you're saying harmful, do I just disagree? If I just disagree, then I'm not gonna fight with you online, girl. You got it. You know, sometimes, like, that's, you know, sometimes that's the valuable thing. If it's like, you know, if the conversation is like, oh, like, I don't use any oil on my hair, and you shouldn't use oil either. Okay, girl, I'm gonna keep my Aunt Jackie's, and you may do what works for you, and I'm gonna do what works for me. And sometimes, like, you know, sometimes that's a good thing to do, like, just to walk away. I think for Black people, like, you know, we face so much fighting all the time. Like, sometimes, like, you know, walk away from the fight. Some stuff is not worth it. Some things, you know, are not worth your peace. Some things are not worth the peace that you may cost the other person, like, by, you know, instigating something, or, you know, like, picking a fight online. Like, you know, sometimes supporting and protecting Black women just looks like, you know, making a comment to protect them in the comment section of something. Because I think we spend so much time on the internet. I use that specifically because I think that there are other ways to fight injustices and to perpetuate care and love with the internet that don't have to do with you going out into the streets. And I think we talked about this in a previous episode. Sometimes, like, you know, the perpetuancy, don't know if that's either of those are words. It's fine. New words. That's what we do here on the Good Black Podcast.
That's not what we do. No.
in the act of showing love, you know, in pushing that forward. Sometimes, like, it's just, you know, it's just about your engagement. It's just about the way you choose to, you know, to show up and, you know, engage, you know, women in a Black women in particular space. And again, and also that being, all of those things being said, it doesn't have to just be romantic love for anybody who's listening. Your love can be shown, again, you know, like just speaking up for them when they are asked, showing up and advocating when, you know, when you should, when you can, and when you should, promoting their work when it's needed, and clapping for them when they win. Sometimes I think, you know, our Black women just need more than someone for men just to fight if the challenge arises. Sometimes they just need to know that they're seen. Sometimes they just need to be seen and heard and listened to and respected in that way. And I think that these are all things that we can do for the group. And I feel like it's the literal least you can do, to check yourself sometimes, listen to what's being said to you and take it in. And then also, like, you know, sometimes pick and choose your battles depending on what it is. And, you know, and just do the active work daily of protecting Black women, especially Black mamas, because we care about mamas here on the Good Black Podcast.
Yep, Black mamas matter.
Yep, they absolutely do. And I think that's it for Love Letters. Do you have anything you want to add?
That is it.
All right. Bet. Well, we will be back to close out with my favorite cousin.
All right. So my favorite cousin, which is our favorite segment.
Everybody's favorite segment.
Everybody's favorite segment. Because who are we going to pick this time? Who knows? Although I feel like if you've been listening to this episode, you probably know where this is going.
Yeah. It's real mama heavy this week.
You know? So we're going to keep that train rolling. So my favorite cousin for this episode this week, I have several because I do what I want. It's my mom. It's my stepmom. It's my aunties, it's my friends and other community members of mine who are moms or maternal figures in someone else's life. And it's my clients. They're all my favorite cousin this week. Y'all have been doing some amazing work. I see you, I stand with you, I celebrate you, just all the things. So yeah.
Nice. So my favorite cousin this week are my three moms. So as my family knows, I have three people who claim, you know, motherhood, birth, literally, and honorary. So my actual mom, I love you, girl. You know, you're my girl. And my sister, who also claims motherhood of me. I love you, girl. You're my girl. And my aunt, who's the best aunt in all the world.
Auntie points yes, always auntie for that one.
Always on deck. If you are listening, you know
who you are.
Put your name out there, you know, let the people know. But but yes, all three of you all have had an immeasurable impact on the person that I am. I appreciate you all so much and love all three of you very, very much. And I don't have a favorite, so it's just to the three of y'all. No, I do have a favorite. That's okay. My mama is my favorite.
Can't wait a minute.
Yeah, I was going to say I tried myself. And you, mama. I'm sorry. I apologize. So my mama is my favorite. The other two are they share favorites and honorariness.
Honorary favorites.
There we go. It's just like a degree. So yes, that is it for our favorite cousin. Thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode of the Good Black Podcast, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Peace.
Hey fam, want to join in on the conversation? Have a topic suggestion? Send us your thoughts at goodblackpodcast@gmail.com. That's GOODBLACKPODCAST@gmail.com. To support us, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, leave us voice messages on Anchor, share, just do all the things across all your favorite platforms. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Good Black Podcast.